Mig MAGA.
What we're seeing has been true for a very long time. I want to be really clear. What we are seeing by people's cell phone and people pushing the DOJ to release files, and no matter how much they try to control it, what we're seeing isn't new. Trump isn't the problem, he's the symptom. Trump, unfortunately, as many people want to sort of weave this into, he's done all this. No, he hasn't. No, he hasn't. What he unfortunately was able to do is recognize something he could tap into, and then he could manipulate it for his own gain, but it already existed. The Epstein stuff has, guys, what's gone on in this file, and the more things that I see, the more forever, for absolutely ever. And guess what? This is the first time we're seeing it with our own eyes. Both sides of the aisle didn't want to believe the victims. Heaven forbid. All of this documented evidence, we don't believe it. We're seeing it for the first time. It doesn't mean it just happened. It's been happening forever, and we've turned culturally, socially, we have turned a blind eye to it all under the auspice that we're getting better. And we are, don't get me wrong, I see progress, but let's not negate the reality of what's always been just under the surface. And right now we're having the very painful realization, and it feels like it's happening all at once. I think that we're seeing it all at once, and it is the necessary tipping point. The moment that has to happen for us to finally go, that was always happening. I ignored it. I didn't listen to that story. And by the way, you can talk about Epstein all you want. We all know that every family out there has that story we never talk about. That uncle that doesn't come to dinner anymore, the cousin that we don't, whatever. And what do we say? Well, that's personal family business. Well, I remove them from my vicinity. Oh, you didn't go to the police? Oh, you didn't put them on blast? Because you didn't want your family to. This is this huge event that we as a culture have been fostering for quite some time. Every single time something happened within the four walls of your house or extended family, and you didn't go right to the police and right to the media because you thought you could handle it better and you didn't want anybody knowing your business. Here it is. This is it. It's connected to a very old, very boring cliche that says power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. That the more we can get away with, and the more there is no check on who I am or what I do or anything like that, the more people will push that envelope further and further. And not just in American culture. I think it's true across cultural lines. I think this push for doing something nobody else can do, yet I want to. The notion that the law applies to different people at different times, the notion that I can skip the line and get into a restaurant, the notion that I can get out of a ticket, the notion that I could have more money and power in order to grant me access to places where other people can't go. There's this promise of the United States, this idea of the American dream. It's not one of equality. It's one of, I can work hard and get more. It's about the access and the freedom I can purchase. And when that's our goal, then we're sitting at a pretty horrific spot. Healthcare is an example. To say, only if you make a lot of money in the richest country on earth do you get healthcare. But it's a foundational thing where you have to work for that. Any sort of basic decency in this world, you have to work for. And only people who have an inherent value deserve it. If that's your foundation, then of course, this is exactly where we're supposed to be right now. But I do think it's a tipping point. Putting it all in our face like this and having to have these discussions rather than it being hidden. The fact that it's all on the news every night, there it is. Now we're really having to face it. And I think there's something painfully powerful about that. Because all of the structures that you assumed existed to hold up the rule of law, to hold up democracy, to hold up the legal system, to hold up a kind of norm-based society, those rules have not been in play. They're not in play now. I'm not sure if they've ever been in play. And so to admit that means we got to tear it all down. And to say the words, we got to tear it all down, it's absolutely terrifying, and it will feel like chaos. It will. And that's why empires fall. That's the pattern. I just finished talking about the 2000 election between Gore and Bush and how Gore didn't push it any further, right? How Gore decided to concede. I'll tell you why he decided to concede. And it's the same reason that nobody pushed the JFK assassination any further. Because if you push those things to their finality, you have to tear down the system. You would have to admit in the Gore-Bush election that there was irrevocable damage done to the electoral system that made that particular election fraudulent. And if you make that particular election fraudulent, how do I know the rest of them haven't been? How can I ever trust the system again? And if I can't trust the system again, it doesn't matter who won or who lost, because the whole thing's going to collapse. So Gore walks away. That's complicit in building up and keeping a system. Same with the JFK assassination. Why wasn't it pushed? I'll tell you why it wasn't pushed. Because any rational person that looked at any of that would have gone straight to the government. You go straight to the government, you start asking those hard questions, it all has to fall. It all has to come down. And we're at a part right now where we have to acknowledge what's going on. We have to acknowledge the injustice. We have to acknowledge all of the things that Americans have said about the rest of the world. We have to acknowledge the inherent flaws in our own house. And we have to figure out how we're going to now, and I do think tear down and rebuild is probably the most significant thing, because I think if anybody would admit to anything, it's that money gives you power. And a certain amount of money gives you so much power that democracy can't breathe in the same space. The ideas of democracy can't exist in the same space. And again, it's been happening forever. There's no question this government and this moment isn't indicative of anything. It's just coming to a head now. And to be honest, I think it's because of Trump. His insanity and his complete disregard for the system is what's going to bring down the system, because it made us all look. Guys, if you don't laugh, if your head will explode, I think.